All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jazziz Last Call. I am Brian Zimmerman, executive editor of Jazziz Magazine. Happy to have you here with us tonight. We're coming in a little bit early, under the wire, fashionably early, you could say, because we got a little bit of a different vibe for this video. It's going to just be me, and our guest today is hopefully going to be you, everyone watching. So I encourage, if you are watching and you are excited to talk about your favorite album covers in jazz, and you know someone else who might be interested in sharing your favorite album covers in jazz, click that share button. Go ahead and let the world know you're watching, and hopefully we can make this thing a real jam session, a real hang. But you know, a lot of you hear me talk each episode about our upcoming fall 2020 issue. We're working on it now. We're getting it very close to finished. And it's an exciting issue because it is all about the art of the album. That's the working title of this issue. What do we mean by the art of the album? Well, listening to albums, which is in and of itself a fine art, producing albums, collecting albums. We've got an excerpt from the book Pressed for All Time by Michael Jarrett in there. We have an essay by jazz writer Neil Tesser about the history and origin of the concept album in there. We've got an interview with Blue Note president Don Was in there. And the cover and the story that I happen to be working on is about album cover art. It can be so iconic. We've all been there, right? The album cover that catches your eye from the record store window, back when there were record stores and back when you were able to go out and about and stroll past record store windows. But it's just something about these iconic albums that really draw you in. It's like you can hear the music playing before you even drop the needle on it. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. In the article for the issue, we talked to 5 present day designers who are working on some of today's most eye-catching albums and ask them about their favorite cover designers. So it's a kind of designers on designers type article. So in the spirit of that story, I decided tonight I'm going to share with you my favorite album cover designs, and I invite you watching to do the same. You can let us know what your favorite album cover is in the comments. A few of you already have. Lavinia Dreamweaver, hey Lavinia, how you doing, has shared some album covers by the Rippingtons, by Ken Navarro, by Kayla Waters, some really, really nice album covers up here on the Facebook page. So again, if you're watching and you want to do the same, drop an album cover into the comments. Let us know which ones are your favorite. You know, speaking of issues, I just want to say that, and cool covers, our summer 2020 issue is out right now. Here it is. It's all about the age of fusion. That's the theme of this one. Nice cover story on Chick Corea in there. It has already been mailed to subscribers, but fortunately, all of the content from this print issue has been digitized. It's available as web content on our website. Now, you will need a digital subscription to read those articles. Unfortunately, we're offering a special subscription rate for Jazziz Last Call viewers. You subscribe now, you get all of the content in this print issue, plus all of our previous print issues. Plus, we will enroll you to receive our forthcoming Art of the Album issue completely for free. So you get 3 months of digital access. Plus, come September, when that fall issue comes out, you will receive it in your mailbox. You have all this great content to listen to. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. You know, we start with a toast. This one is to all of you watching. And if any of you watching have a toast, feel free to drop that in the comments as well. But here's my sparkling water. Cheers to you, everyone. You know, I think it's important before we really start this conversation about our favorite album covers. And like I said, we all have them. They're those album covers that catch your eye on, you know, someone's credenza or at a garage sale. You just have to have it. Kind of talk about the history of album covers because it's pretty fascinating. You know, prior to the 1940s, album covers really weren't a thing because those early 78s, you know, those tiny shellac discs, which were the first records, really were sold. It was 5 minutes of music. So when they were sold, it was usually in loose paper bags, blank cardboard sleeves. If anything, it had the name of the song, because that's all you got. 5 minutes was really one song. Name of the song, maybe the producer of the album, and that was it. Well, some marketing geniuses in the 1940s thought, you know, if somebody wanted to listen to a long classical work, they would need some place to store these records. So they invented something called the album, and it was named after photo albums, and it essentially served the same purpose. You'd insert a bunch of records into this book-like photo album and carry it around, much like those CD cases we all had back in the day. Remember, you'd like lug those around on long car rides or whatever. Same deal. You'd put all your albums in there, and that would be your record album, much like a photo album. Well, in time, record companies started to sell multi-disc compilations in themes, 10 records about a single artist, 10 records of a single work. And that would be the quote unquote record album. In time, with the invention of 45 RPM records and then long play LP records, you could increase the amount of music on every record and kind of diminish the need for these huge multi-pack album record album things. But this idea of having a thematic, conceptual album stuck. Everything unified by a single artist, by a single theme. And that's where the name album came from. And then in 1940, a graphic designer for the Columbia Records label named Alex Stanweiss had the idea to, instead of just sell an album cover with text, he wanted to throw an image on there. And what he did was he superimposed an image of the Imperial Theater onto the record Smash Hits by Rodgers and Hart. And lo and behold, that was the first album cover. So we can credit Alex Steinweiss, again, this graphic designer from Columbia Records in 1940 for creating the first album cover. And so that is actually my number one pick for favorite album covers of all time. Jeff, if you are manning the controls back there, if you could put that album cover up. It is, again, Smash Hits by Rodgers and Hart from Columbia Records in 1940, widely considered by scholars and critics, the first graphic album cover. And let's see if we can get that up. Perhaps I can do it. Bear with us, folks. You know how it is, these technical difficulties. Anyways, I want you to see this because it is pretty cool. Here we go. So yeah, check that out. This is 1940s Columbia Records Smash Hits by Rodgers and Hart. Alex Steinweiss, designed the cover, superimposed the awning, the marquee of the Imperial Theater, and lo and behold, the first album cover was created. So this is number one on my list of my favorite album covers of all time. We will move right along to number two. And as I do that, let's see if anyone else has chimed in on Facebook. We see Smooth Jazz Family saying hello. Hello to you, Smooth Jazz Family. Again, if you're watching, you want to let us know where you're watching from or let us know about your favorite album cover of all time, please do. Number two is the Lester Young Trio by probably one of the most iconic designers in jazz. So this is an album by Lester Young Trio, recorded in 1951 on Norman Granz's label, but this version that I'm showing you was released in 1953 on Clef Records. The designer of this album cover is David Stone Martin, and if you talk to current album designers, this name pops up a ton. David Stone Martin did a lot of work for Verve Records back in the 50s. You may have seen his Charlie Parker with Strings album cover. You may have seen his Diz and Bird album cover. He did all the album covers for Live at the Philharmonic, that Norman Granz series. And he's instantly recognizable because of these bold ink lines, these kind of squiggly characters that are sort of abstract, but, very much concrete. This is Lester Young here with the sideways horn and the hat. The designers I talked to really had a lot of respect for David Stone Martin. He said that he was able to capture these jazz musicians' essence through character, but never, exaggerated them, never made them look, cartoonish. And that's certainly the case here. This is not only is the cover great, but the music is excellent too. The trio that this album name refers to is, of course, Lester Young on sax, Buddy Rich on drums, and Nat King Cole on piano. Cole was credited, however, under the name A Guy, as an AYE guy. Some contractual conflict there, I'm sure, and he couldn't go on the record as Nat King Cole. So he's credited here as a guy. Still not the best fake name in jazz, though. That belongs to Buckshot LaFunk, who was really Cannonball Adderley, but he appeared on an album due to a contractual conflict as Buckshot LaFunk. Branford Marsalis would take that name years later in the 90s and use it for his incredible kind of hip-hop crossover band, Buckshot LaFunk. But got people writing in here. Let's see. He's got the Richard Rodgers and Lester Young covers are great and so different. You're absolutely right. I love the kind of old school superimposition of that first, Richard Rodgers and Hart album, and the Lester Young, just those animated lines by David Stone Martin are just so cool. Thanks, Joyce. Third Street Jazz is telling us wear pork pie all winter. Very hip. I used to have a pork pie. I should have worn it tonight. I went with the Mets cap instead because the hair was just not cooperating. See someone, Gary, mentioning Bitches Brew. Spoiler, Gary, it's coming up for sure. But thanks for writing in, everyone. Like I say, if you got album covers that just are your all-time favorites, you could frame them on the wall. They're so beautiful. Write in, let us know about it. We'll get to them on air. We are going to move right along, though, to the next album on our list. When you talk about iconic album cover designers, you cannot leave out Reed Miles. Reed Miles did so much work for Blue Note Records in the mid-century. His style is almost synonymous with Blue Note. When you close your eyes and think of a Blue Note record, you're probably envisioning the work of Reed Miles. My favorite work of his, it was kind of a collaborative effort, was John Coltrane's Blue Train, released on Blue Note in 1958, I want to say. And if I'm wrong, someone write in and tell me. This is actually John Coltrane's only recording as a leader for Blue Note Records. He appeared elsewhere as a sideman on a couple albums. I'm thinking of one by like Sonny Clark. But this is his only recording as a leader. And Francis Wolff, famous, Blue Note executive and photographer, amateur photographer, captured John Coltrane during these sessions. And that photo says it all. A genius at work, contemplating the music, really at peace in his environment. That photo was handed over to Reed Miles, who kind of cast it in this very cool blue shade. Reed Miles's typography is so iconic. He kept it minimal so that you could really focus on Coltrane's face and kind of contemplate what might he be thinking. This record is absolutely one of my favorites. And years later, Blue Note would release a compilation of recordings by John Coltrane as a sideman for Blue Note, and would use a similar photo from the same broadsheet by Francis Wolff. And again, just kind of captured that same magic. So Blue Train, again, a great album in terms of music, but with that album cover, you've probably seen this framed. You've probably seen this up in jazz clubs. It is absolutely iconic. Third Street Jazz is saying it. Train has a lollipop in his mouth too. Hey, he was from what I've heard, he was big into candy. He liked his candy, and you can't blame him. But to me, it's the face of a genius at work. So we will move right along to the next one now. And that would be, let's see if we could pull it up. That would be, I spoiled it a little bit earlier, but yes, Bitches Brew from 1970, Miles Davis. It wouldn't be a famous album cover show without mentioning Bitches Brew, Miles Davis' iconic work from 1970. The album cover was designed by a German painter named Matti Klarwein. This cover, to me, it says so much about the music inside. If there was ever an album cover that communicated what was behind the album, this was it. You got to remember, this was 1970. This was a transition from the 60s to the 70s. This was really a major statement for fusion music for Miles Davis, coming off of A Silent Way, which was kind of moving toward fusion, but Bitches Brew absolutely cracked it open. From what I've heard about these recording sessions, it was wild. It was experimental. The musicians performing didn't even know what the music was going to sound like. And when everything came together, this album cover just kind of summed it all up. It's psychedelic. It's Afrocentric. It's just kind of surrealistic, Dadaist. It is beautiful. And it brings you back to the time where you'd be listening to an album and have the actual album cover in your hands so that you could look in it, get lost in it, read through the liner notes. And with the digitization of music, we may have lost a little bit of that. And if you're watching, write in, let me know. How do you feel about digitized music? Is it the same as back in the day when you would drop the needle on an album and you kind of had to be there the whole time because in a few minutes you had to flip the thing over? So share some of those memories as well. I would love to hear that. Okay, we will move on to, this is my fifth, if we're starting from the Steinway album, this is my fifth, so this will actually end the list, but I've got a few bonuses. But I wanted to go really recent, something modern for this last album on the list. And so I went with, ooh, did that work? It's supposed to be Norah Jones. Let's see, Jeff, can we get that to work? There it is, Norah Jones, Come Away With Me. This was released in 2002, again, on the Blue Note label. And this album essentially introduced Norah Jones to the world. This was her debut studio album. A lot of buzz was surrounding Norah Jones. I mean, here was this very talented singer-songwriter coming out of Texas, had incredible jazz chops, but also had this, was going her own way in folk music as well. And I just love the expression on her face on this album, just kind of looking away, but it's as if the photographer captured all of the potential, for that Norah Jones would bring into this world. She was like in her 20s. This came out in 2000. We recorded in 2001, came out in 2002. She was in her early 20s and was about to, really just change the world with her music. This album would go on to become not only one of the best-selling albums in jazz, but one of the best-selling albums in music, millions and millions of copies. It's just, the expression to me is something like, I've got something to say, and world, I hope you're listening. So I wanted to get a really strong photograph here in this list of album covers, and this is one I chose. So let me know if you agree. And we're hearing from people. Yes, Lavinia is saying, still love buying albums. She loves the album. She loves the album cover art over digital. Me too, Lavinia. Don't get me wrong. I love the ease of just being able to click play on any album in the world, but there's something about having a physical album in your hands that kind of transforms the musical experience. And let's see who else is written in, because I've seen some mentioning of album covers here as well. Matt Merowitz, Todd Sikafuz's Tiny Resistors. That is a pretty cool album cover. And yeah, I'll go ahead and bring up my honorable mentions here. I mentioned the David Stone Martin, and here's another one by the master. As I said, he used to do a lot of Norman Granz's Jazz at the Philharmonic series, and I just love here. Maybe it takes a little while to transition over. But the one he did for Volume 4 of Jazz at the Philharmonic is just so cool to me. It's of this trumpet player, but it's this great angle of shooting up from the trumpet. You see the trumpet player's whole body. He's got the music stand there. Let's see. There it is. Yeah, and who's on this album? Charlie Parker, Coleman Hawkins, Buddy Rich, Irving Ashby, Lester Young, Willie Smith, Buck Clayton, Kenny. So you may have seen this in posters. Again, it's that bold line by David Stone Martin, and the combination of the colors that kind of bleed out from the line. A lot of the designers I talked to for the new article, they say they were inspired by things like comic books and Mad Magazine, especially, and newspaper comic prints. And David Stone Martin totally fell into that groove and spoke to a lot of these designers. I think 2 of the 6 designers I spoke to claimed that David Stone Martin was their biggest influence. I also did this one just because this is probably the most extravagant album cover out there. And Jeff, we can click refresh on that guy. You've seen it. You know it. It is Return to Forever's Romantic Warrior. Again, really kind of summarizes the music, summarizes the mood of this thing. Here is the Romantic Warrior riding into battle, gallantly, beautiful. And that's the vibe of this music, which was fusion of a different sort. We already had Miles Davis's Bitches Brew up there, which was totally raucous, really kind of channeling rock and funk and psychedelia. And I feel like Chick in some ways took it to a little bit of a quieter place. Our publisher, Michael Fagan, has a great story about walking into Al Di Meola's house. And one of the first things he sees, the guitarist in Return to Forever, was this huge portrait of this painting up in the wall. So this is iconic. It is Gary saying romantic warrior boom. Yes, Gary knows, he understands. But anyway, yes, those are my honorable mentions. So many though, really. We could have made this list 10, 20, 30. And I appreciate you again, everybody, for writing in, letting us know about your favorite covers. And as I mentioned, this issue in which we talk about famous album covers, in which we talk about producing albums, in which we talk about the art of listening to albums, is coming out in September. It is our fall 2020 issue. And like I said, you subscribe now, you get to unlock all of our digital content. We've got podcasts, we got playlists, we've got exclusive interviews, including one I just did with guitarist John Schofield that is live and on our site right now. You can unlock all of that for 3 months for just 99 cents per month. Plus, we'll enroll you to receive this art of the album issue for free come September. If you like the subscription, you just stay on. It's yours. You'll get a new print issue every quarter, 100-page premium print issue every quarter, including 2 collector quality CDs. If you don't, you cancel at any time, but I think you're really, really going to like it. Wanted to quickly thank, before we head out for today, the show's sponsor. That would be Cambridge Audio. They are makers of some of the finest audio equipment in the world. You can check out their incredibly stylish premium Alva TT, the world's first Bluetooth aptX HD turntable that lets you put the turntable anywhere in the room. More info is at cambridgeaudio.com. And hey, we are talking album covers after all, so I know we're all very much into vinyl. You're going to need a record player. You're going to need a turntable, and Bluetooth is very much the present, so might as well make it a Bluetooth one. Let's see. Wanted to let you know what is coming up in the show for the week. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Dave Weckl, drummer Dave Weckl. A lot of people know him from Chick Corea's acoustic band, Electric Band. He just released a new EP with his wife, Clivia Tanisi, so we're going to be talking to them about that tomorrow. And we're going to be finishing up with Norman Brown, the guitarist who has put out a new album, hugely influenced by Wes Montgomery. So we're going to be talking some Wes. We're going to be talking about just classic jazz guitar with Norman Brown. Should be really cool. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. And we will certainly let you know next time we do one of these shows where it's kind of more interactive, kind of more, of communal. It's a great jam session. And again, I appreciate you all for chiming in. That'll do it for tonight's episode. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and we'll see you next time on the Jazz's Last Call. I'm going to shut down the bar. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Brian Zimmerman, so long, everyone.